The Kings, there's rumors galore, and shockingly, the Kings are in the middle of them. And I don't think it's an accident. I don't think this is much ado about nothing. We mentioned yesterday that the last time Scott Perry took over a team was the New York Knicks in, I think, 2017, and it took him just over 2 seasons to clear out the entire roster, every single person. I don't know that. I hope that's what he does here. I'd be fine with that. There's some people I don't want to see go, but let me put it this way. I'd rather him do that than acquire like the one guy that's overpaid to try to win the championship.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess I should clarify.
Okay, but let me ask you really quick on just the premise of rumors. I feel like within the last, 5 to 7 years.
Yes.
The Kings are in a lot more rumors.
Yes.
Now, whether, we can figure out how that's happening, why that's happening, but they are. Do you like that or not? I don't know how many percentage of them even come to reality. Probably less than 10%, maybe less than 5%. But there used to be a time, I'm going way back, like to Jeff Petrie's time, where like the Kings were never talked about. And then boom, a trade happened.
Yes.
Usually you liked it, you didn't like it, it worked out, it didn't work out. For this job, I think the rumors are good. I don't know if they're good. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. It's always nice to hear your team.
Sure.
But sometimes if it's a rumor, you're like, I don't really like that player.
So you ready?
I'm ready.
I've never unveiled this one before.
Be ready, everybody.
I actually have a little bit of a theory about this. I do.
Of why it's happening more? Okay.
If you go through and you were to like somehow compile a list every offseason of teams that are most involved in the rumors, generally, the more involved you are, you're either a bad team or you're a team in distress. So let me give you an example. The Kings are involved in a lot of rumors right now. They're not a good team. Very disorganized. At least that's the appearance. The Celtics are involved in a lot of rumors right now. That's a team in distress. Jason Tatum. Okay. I think that now, if you also took those bad teams and all those rumors and you had like an execution rate, no, you're not killing anyone, but how many of those rumors actually come to fruition? I think it would be incredibly low.
Yeah.
Okay. They're always incredibly, they're low, but I think lower. I've watched this for a few years now. I think certain teams have certain relationships with certain journalists, and they have sort of a handshake agreement that they will get fed certain things. Here's how it works. Jason, you are Jason Ross of the DraftKings.net, and I am Carmichael Dave, GM for the New Orleans Miss Piggy's Got a Hickeys, right? I don't want to use any real names.
Okay.
And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to rehab my image as a franchise. And one way to rehab that image, one really tried and true way over the last 10 years, and this really got pioneered by Adrian Wojnarowski, is, and you can pick this up if you're looking for it, coach or GM gets fired. General manager Jason Ross was fired by the Sacramento Kings today. Ross compiled a 55-134 record in his first stint as a general manager. The prevailing thought was the Kings just wanted to go in a different direction, and unrest amongst players led to, the ouster of the beleaguered GM. You'll see a headline like that. Or the Sacramento Kings and Jason Ross have mutually agreed to part ways. Despite a 55-125 record, Jason Ross won Executive of the Year in 2012, and according to sources, expects to be in the mix for several jobs around the highly respected Ross is expected to be in the mix among several teams around the league. You've seen that one too.
Yeah,
I believe that is a direct corollary to whether or not during the stint of the coach, the agent, or the play or the GM, how open they've been with the tastemakers in the media. I think generally the more it's involved. You call a journalist and you say, "Hey, we're taking a look at we're taking a look at Giannis and Jaime Jaquez and Lonzo Ball, and we're going to kick the tires on Zion Williamson." That journalist, then a highly placed source within the organization, says XYZ PDQ. Holy crap, hits go off the chart. Website hits go off the chart. Subscriptions go up. Now, when you put 30 of those together over the course of 2 months, you're now all of a sudden in line for a huge payday. It is such a seedy, slimy business behind the scenes and how this works. So when you see these types of things, the first thing I want to look at is, all right, what is the tone of the statement, by the way, from the journalist? Who is the journalist? What is their track record necessarily? There's a big difference between Shams Charania reporting and Mortimer McShnerd of the Akron Express, who has 400 followers on Twitter saying that, or not the Akron. You get my point. Akron NBA Daily Podcast. That's a very, very long way for me to say that I think the Kings right now are in shotgun mode, meaning they're going to shotgun all these rumors are going to shotgun out there. Scott Perry is incredibly media savvy. It may be, other than his connections around the league, his biggest attribute. He understands agents. He understands the media. He understands deep connections. He has a lot of respect throughout the NBA. I think we're going to see a ton of this. Of all of them, I think the one that has the most legs, if I had to guess, is going to be Trae Young for a number of reasons.
They do need a point guard.
They need a point guard. Yeah. Okay, but there's also Darius Garland. There's also Chris Paul. There's also Lonzo Ball.
Drew Holiday.
Rich Paul.
Yeah.
Brogdon.
Brogdon's another name. And
Marcus Smart, I heard too.
Smart, I heard. If you look at the way this is another way to say in advance to look at how things are going, the way this franchise historically operates. When they are in peril from a public standpoint, that's a lot of times a danger zone. When you're looking at renewals, when you're looking at the way things are going into next season, they need to do something this summer. And they don't, but I believe, at least in the past, the internal view is, guys, there's no energy surrounding this team going into next year. The fans are not on board. They're not with us right now. We need to do something. Trae Young would be that type of move. Trae Young would be a move where you get a lot of people saying, "Oh my God, that's exciting! I want to see that."
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's an established player, has been a good player. I wonder how much that. I mean, I feel like social media versus this would also be a social media versus the common fan. I say common fan, the majority of the fans that go to the game reaction, because I feel like it's tough to please social media.
Yes.
So you could say, "Oh, they're adding an all-star," and you're like, it's Trae Young. I don't know. He's undersized. He doesn't defend. I mean, I could already hear what the negatives would be. But you feel like that's the one that, well, part of what you're saying, though, if you're saying, a team that's kind of had looking for some boosts and all that kind of stuff, is that what Scott Perry's thinking? That leans more to already being here, and that's like Vivek. Scott Perry has nothing to do with the past like that.
Yes. But Vivek does.
Yeah, for sure.
And
he's still the owner.
And
right?
I need to understand where it's going to go. I haven't seen anything yet. I haven't seen anything Scott Perry has done to indicate that he's being influenced from above. I haven't seen anything Scott Perry's done. Well, there's a lot of questions. Look, if I'm just calling spades a spade, and you know how big of fans we are of Doug Christie, but I don't think it would shock anyone if it turned out that keeping Doug Christie was a prerequisite from ownership upon hire.
Yeah.
And again, out of zero disrespect to Doug, but we've asked this question before. You have to put your personal feelings aside and try to keep your credibility. We've asked the question before. Would Doug Christie be in line for any other head coaching job in the league? I don't know, but I if I had to bet, I would say I don't think so. Not right now.
Right.
By the way, Doug Christie may be coach of the year and a Hall of Fame coach, and I certainly hope he is. I'm just saying, call a spade a spade.
Right.
That is the only move Scott Perry has made so far. And it's and that one is, I don't know. I can absolutely make a case that was a prerequisite for him having the job, that decision was already made, and they gave it a week or two and did the search around the league and took some phone calls before they went ahead and announced it and if I had to guess, that's how I would guess. That doesn't mean Scott wouldn't want Doug,
Mm-hmm.
but if I had to guess, it was a combo perhaps of, no, this is who are we, are you okay with this guy? Yeah, sure, of course I am. Doug's great. I mean, okay, great. But that's still interference. I need to see Scott do some things that are not his.
Yeah.
And even so, it's going to be a while before we start flinching, because I think Monty, when he came in, did a lot of things that were his.
Yeah. And that's where, whatever the rumors are, whatever's out there, we do know that there's a common theme, even among players. I mean, Sabonis saying this on the exit meeting, I thought was interesting. Like, hey, we need a point guard. So, that there's a lot of different ways to do that. Like if you just mention the names that are rumored from, what do we say? Trae Young, Darius Garland, Marcus Smart, Lonzo Ball, Malcolm Brogdon. Like Malcolm Brogdon or Chris Paul compared to Trae Young are obviously different point guards, but just different thought process.
Yeah.
Like if you're getting Chris Paul or Brogdon, it's kind of like, hey, hold the fort. We're not sure where we're going, but we need one that's capable.
Yes.
You might be our guy, and it might be 1 year, might be half a season, might move you at the deadline. Or if you're getting Trae Young, like you're the next part of whatever the next run of this team is, and whether that's, I say run, but whatever the next version they're thinking they're going to be, you are a major piece of that. So those are completely different ideals.
Especially, by the way, I would also put Darius Garland in that category.
Yeah, he's been an all-star. He's a young guard.
He's making a ton of money.
Yeah. So financially, you're committing. You're obviously going to have to give up significant return. And so you're kind of just doing a major team shift, which I'm not saying isn't needed.
Right.
But that's kind of a big move.
It's a huge move. And part of this, keep in mind, please, is that if, in fact, Trae Young is available, he is largely available if the Atlanta Hawks don't want to give him the extension he's looking for, which I think I just saw as like,
what's he at right now?
I think it's
contract situation?
Contract right now is he signed for 2 more years at 43 a year. Okay. What he's looking for is somewhere, it's like I think it's a 4-year, 220, it's like 55 mil a year. The Kings, if they traded for Trae Young, would have to agree, or it would have to be known in advance that they were going to extend him and give him what he wants. Yeah,
and then if you're thinking, okay, well, that sounds appealing, but what in return, like just contract-wise, now you have to be talking about LaVine.
There are 2 players
Sabonis.
that can do it on their own, LaVine and Sabonis.
On their own.
They both work. They both work under the cap. Independently, they both work. As a matter of fact, if we take a look at it.
Well, and if I'm just guessing.
Yeah.
I would think Atlanta would be more interested in Sabonis. I would think the Kings would be more interested in dealing LaVine.
I think you're 100,000% correct.
So,
I think you're 100,000% correct.
So then if you just go, are you better off getting Sabonis, giving up Sabonis and getting Trae Young, then I mean, obviously, I think if you could do the other one, I think you'd look at that, but I don't know.
What LaVine? I think they do the deal tomorrow with it.
The Kings would.
I think they absolutely would. I don't know that Atlanta would either. Yeah. Trae Young makes $43 million. Zach LaVine makes $44 million.
So they're the same guy.
They're the same exact guy. They're both signed for another couple of years after this. They're both extension eligible. They're both looking for extensions, probably around the same range. In that situation, you acquire Trae Young. You probably then maybe hold on to DeRozan now that you split the 2 of them up. And again, this isn't that's not part of the timeline necessarily. Or
what is the timeline? What's the plan?
That's exactly right. What would the plan be? Sabonis for Trae Young. I'm sure Atlanta would do that.
How about you? I'm less intrigued by that, but I mean, it's not. It's just a change of course.
I wouldn't do it. I don't. When you look at Trae Young's numbers, they're fantastic.
Yeah, he's a good player.
He's a scorer. He's a distributor.
He's a great shooter. I mean, like range, he kind of changes the defensive scheme, just his pickup point, all that kind of stuff.
Can Trae Young be the best player in a championship team?
Well, evidence says no, but I mean,
I don't know. Also, in a vacuum, is Trae Young better than Zach LaVine?
I would say yes, but I think what he does for a team is more just by his position more valuable, unless if you were Zach LaVine and you were this lethal defender, which he is not.
Sure.
It's a little bit more difficult to have the impact that I believe a center or a point guard can have just overall in a team, but not impossible. But I think you need to then be a two-way player, and Zach LaVine's not a two-way.
He's not. By the way, you had to, much like I did when I did, you had to pause and think about it.
Mm-hmm.
You had to pause and think about who's the better player.
What I don't like about Trae Young, though, is his three-point shooting.
I don't either.
What do you mean? Percentage?
Yeah. Like he takes a lot, so he makes a lot, but he also misses a lot.
Yeah. That range is pretty crazy, though. But that sounds a lot better to me with Sabonis than without Sabonis.
Well, and that's the other thing, though, is why am I not finding Trae Young in this thing I'm trying to look at here? It's Trey, right? What am I tripping here? Trae. Stupid idiot.
Trae?
Also, do you need a guy who led the league or is at near the top in assists when you have a guy like Sabonis? Like, doesn't Sabonis allow you to have that point guard, much like they have with Fox or Halliburton for a minute or whoever that averages 5-6 assists a game because you've got a center that averages 7 or 8 assists a game?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think anybody else that can get people involved. I am okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just, with my issue with Trae Young is that, and also, and again, this is hindsight, and I don't want, I hate being that guy. But you're going to give Trae Young an extension for that size, but you couldn't give Pascal Siakam that.
Right.
And
maybe are you also doing this to not give him the extension?
What do you mean? Oh, just to get the money off the book?
Just to switch players, switch the look, and then see, all right, evaluate some more and go, well, also we have a big contract. You can move him later. I don't know. I don't know if that's I feel like in the end, Trae Young would be easier to move than Zach LaVine.
I agree with you.
So if you were able to get Atlanta to do that, then it's just you've added another asset. I mean, Zach LaVine's still an asset. He's not for everybody, but you just have to be creative and find the work. But of the list, who do we say? Smart, Brogdon, Chris Paul, Lonzo Ball, Drew Holiday, Garland, Trae Young. Do any of those you go? I mean, because they're all going to be different price points and cost you different things. And maybe that's part of the factor here, because I think Trae Young or Garland would be the one that you have to give up the most for.
Sorry, just real quick. I just wanted to, because I was looking at this. Trae Young scored 0.9 points more per game this year than Zach LaVine.
Okay.
Trae Young had 7 assists more per game than Zach LaVine. That's massive.
How many assists per game?
11.6.
Okay.
Zach had 1.2 more boards. Trae had half more of a steal. Same on blocks. Who cares? But with the exception of free throw percentage, where Trae Young shot 87% to Zach's 82%. Zach's 10% better from the field. Zach's 10.6% better from beyond the arc.
Zach had a great shooting year.
He really did. He's got him in box plus minus. He's got him in value over replacement player. My point is even if you come out saying Trae's better, which you and I both, they're so damn close.
Right.
Of all the names that intrigue me, you said I think Garland also has legs.
Yeah.
But again, you're paying you just got rid of your franchise point guard. You're trying to go get a lesser franchise point guard and pay him more. It just the one I don't
chasing mistakes.
Yeah, you really are. They are if they're doing stuff like that, they're at the blackjack table down $500 trying to win it all in one hand.
Right.
So of all of those, you said Garland, Trae Young, Marcus Smart, Malcolm Brogdon, and Drew Holiday
and Lonzo Ball, Chris Paul, maybe are names that
Chris Paul would be my number one choice because he's going to come in cheap and
he's 1 year,
and he's 1 year, and he's going to get you. You know what Chris Paul is, but it sounds like he wants to play in Southern California, be near his family. That's what everybody's saying, right? He's not coming or ring chase, one of the two. My problem with Brogdon is he's always hurt.
Mm-hmm.
The funny thing is Ball would be the type of guy you take a flyer on. Ball's a guy that can play defense, has shown that he can be a plus defender. He's still he's not old. His problem is injury.
Mm-hmm.
You get him cheap as hell, but now let the Bulls West questions
Right.
really happen.
Smart and Holiday are good defenders.
I think I'd take Smart. I think Smart would be the guy. I think for me, for Marcus Smart, there's a guy that you're probably going to get him. Where is he playing now?
He went to the Wizards
Jeez.
after Memphis.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay. So first and foremost, he's going to be really happy to be in Sacramento, and that's a positive. Secondly, let me just take a look. Yeah, he's making.
Is he a free agent or
he $21.5 million next year, and then he is done. So it's another one-off. And let me just look as we break here.
But would you do a future first-round pick somewhere in there? Because Washington, and obviously you have to give it more for money, but that's probably something the Wizards would be looking for.
Would the Wizards take DeMar DeRozan?
They might.
That's where I'd start. DeMar DeRozan to me is unfortunately. It's not even his fault. DeMar has less value than Zach LaVine, but also is more movable.
I think they would do it to have him, be the grown-up in the room.
That's right.
Be our leading scorer next year, and
That's
then we're
right.
probably moving you at the deadline.
I think so too. 31 years old for Marcus Smart. Let me see. I worry about his durability.
Had been good, but the last couple of years.
Yeah, he's played. Jesus, he's played. Is that right?
Yeah, last year he missed a ton of time.
Christ, he played 34 games last year. Played 20 the year before. He's played 54 games in the last 2 years. But he can play defense. If he's healthy,
yeah,
I'd do that. All right, JR and Ken, see you guys. We'll take a break. We'll come back. The role of fathers and Father's Day in sports. Some really good